Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Zcrew podcast. And today, it is Monday, August 11th, 2025. We are officially 3 weeks away from official kickoff of the 2025 NFL regular season, and I am absolutely fired up. Now, we've officially seen 1 week of preseason football. It's been pretty good. I've enjoyed watching some of these games. Enjoyed watching some of the young guys play. We've seen some good rookies make plays so far. I've seen some veterans out there. Daniel Jones, just to name one. But guys, officially, now we are going to discuss the 2025 Cleveland Browns. Again, one of our ops, as you already know. As my guy LeBron James likes to say, Cleveland, this is for you. All right, so without further ado, guys, let's talk about the Cleveland Browns. Now, 2024 was no different for the Cleveland Browns. No offense to them. They've experienced a lot of tough seasons over the last decade, multiple decades, I should say. But, of course, last year the Browns finished with a record of 3-14 and, of course, missed the playoffs last year. Now, the Browns did have two pretty big wins last season. We saw them beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, and unfortunately last year the Ravens did lose to the Browns, which is very tough. But obviously the Browns do play the Ravens and Steelers and the Bengals very tight in the AFC North Division. Of course, these teams are very familiar with one another. We see them twice a year, so of course the Browns are familiar with the Ravens and Steelers. But of course, the Browns only got 3 wins all last season. So, of course, last season the Browns were issued by lots of injuries. Of course, their starting quarterback, Deshaun Watson, unfortunately for him, tore his Achilles. He was not playing very well before that injury happened, but still, again, Deshaun Watson for Cleveland, in my opinion, is the worst contract in the history of professional sports. This Deshaun Watson contract, been terrible. Arguably the worst contract in the history of sports. Again, terrible contract. So, again, he missed basically the whole season last year. And when Deshaun Watson was healthy, he did not look very good at all. Oftentimes, I noticed his burner account on Twitter. If you guys want to know, it's Leroy Binkerstaff. I'm sorry, Deshaun Watson. I don't want to rat you out, but I did find his burner last year. His name is Leroy Binkerstaff, and over again, he was talking shit about the Browns offense, Kevin Stefanski, all that. So it's got to be Deshaun Watson. But anyway, guys, so of course, Deshaun Watson missed most of last season, and we did see one of my favorite quarterbacks, Jameis Winston, led the Browns to 2 victories at the end of last season. Now, guys, of course, last season is one the Browns would like to forget. So that brings us to the 2025 season for the Cleveland Browns. Now, of course, the Browns started this offseason by re-signing their best player in history, I think, Myles Garrett. One of their best players besides, the running back, Jim Brown. My apologies, Mr. Brown. But I will say in their most recent history, Myles Garrett has been the best player in franchise history. So, of course, they had to re-sign Myles Garrett. Now, he did request a trade because, of course, no offense, he doesn't want to play for the Browns anymore. They have not proved anything. This team has no direction. Of course, you don't know what they're doing. What are their goals? Are they rebuilding? Are they trying to compete? Right now, it seems like they're rebuilding, but again, they're kind of making moves to make you question that. So I don't know what they're doing. But honestly, Myles Garrett, took the money, and I believe he's now the highest paid, maybe the second highest paid now behind T.J. Watt. But he was, at one point, at the time he signed, he was the highest paid defensive player, as he should be. One of the best defensive player in the NFL, besides Micah Parsons, if you ask me, of course, is Myles Garrett. Now, of course, the Browns also re-signed quarterback Joe Flacco, my former Ravens quarterback Joe Flacco, as well as Kenny Pickett, again, to try to boost their quarterback room, of course, because they are not sure what Deshaun Watson will give them. And they lost Jameis Winston to the Giants, so they got to have somebody. They also signed a couple guys to their defense, signed former Steeler linebacker Devin Bush, as well as a guy I'm a big fan of. Again, I did not know the Browns actually signed this guy until I was researching for this video. But the Browns signed edge rusher Joe Tryon-Shoyinkan from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who's a very good and underrated edge rusher. I'm very surprised the Bucs actually let him go. And he did. He signed a 1-year deal with the Browns. So that should definitely improve their defensive line. Of course, help him go next to Myles Garrett. And they also signed offensive tackle from the Chicago Bears, Tevin Jenkins, who has been sidelined with lots of injuries in his career. He's been kind of questionable when he has played. He's looked okay. But, of course, the Browns need some more help on their offensive line, so they signed him. And now, guys, the Browns had probably one of the most interesting and questionable and confusing drafts of all time, but, of course, this year. So, first of all, the Browns, I know many Cleveland Browns fans are upset that they did trade away the number 2 overall pick with a chance to draft Travis Hunter. Of course, if I'm the Browns, I'm glad they didn't get him, but I don't know how you pass up on a guy like that. I just don't know how you do it, but they did. end up trading the number 2 overall pick to Jacksonville. They did get a haul back. I think the Jaguars might have overpaid a little bit for that trade, but the Browns did get an absolute haul in return for the number 2 overall pick, so that does help them in the future. But again, you're passing up on a generational talent. What do you want to do with that? So that's pretty questionable if you ask me. But of course, the Browns drafted Mason Graham with the 5th overall pick out of the University of Michigan, so he's going to help bolster their defensive line. Of course, the Browns also drafted one of my favorite players in the draft, running back out of Ohio State, Quinyon Judkins, who's unfortunately facing some off-the-field issues. I'm not going to comment on that. Hope he's okay. Hope he gets to play, but I'm not sure what that's looking like for him right now. So hopefully Judkins gets out there, but again, tough situation for him. The Browns also drafted another running back from Tennessee, Dylan Sampson. I think it's going to be a huge addition because now the Browns did lose Nick Chubb to the Texans. So again, I feel like the last 10 years almost, the Browns have had Nick Chubb in their running back. So now, they're kind of got to figure that out with 2 rookies. And of course, with what's going on with Judkins, you're probably going to have to sign somebody else. But you do have, obviously, a rookie who I like, Dylan Sampson from Tennessee. And they also drafted, of course, why this is one of the more bizarre drafts. They drafted Dylan Gabriel, quarterback out of Oregon in the 3rd round. And then, of course, in round 5, drafted Shedeur Sanders, who, again, somehow was available in round 5. I don't understand that. How was Shedeur Sanders available to them picked at round 5? That's a great question. I don't know. But, of course, the Browns drafted Shedeur Sanders. And, of course, now the talk of the town is who will be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. Now, of course, we did see last Friday night, we saw Dylan Gabriel, who had his bad hamstring, was not able to play. So we saw Shedeur Sanders play 3.5 quarters against the Carolina Panthers on Friday. And now Shedeur said he didn't play great, but based on what I saw, he looked pretty good. And he made some pretty good throws out there. He had 2 touchdowns, including 2 very tight window touchdowns to their big tight end there. So good for him to ball out. Absolutely making the most out of his opportunities, of course. You don't want to see any injuries happen, but of course he's going to take advantage of his opportunity with Dylan Gabriel being injured right now. And the Browns also recently signed quarterback for my Ravens, Snoop Huntley. So we love Snoop, so good to see him in Cleveland. I'm sure he'll probably compete. I'm not sure how long Dylan Gabriel is going to be out for, but that is a very tough break for Mr. Gabriel because he's trying to fight for that potential starting job. I'm sure maybe not starting week 1. I'm pretty sure we'll see Flacco week 1. But again, who's going to be the really backup, and again, rookie quarterback, who's going to be that next guy? And I think Dylan Gabriel's missing his shot if he can't play. So, of course, we want to see him healthy and see how he does in the preseason. And, of course, we saw Shedeur against Carolina last year. Now, the Browns have an interesting wide receiver room. They got Jerry Jeudy, who's actually had a very good season last year. Had a career best season last year with obviously subpar quarterback play. Of course, they also signed wide receiver Deontay Johnson, former Raven. We won't go there, but former Raven. They also have a very good tight end I like. One of my favorite fantasy tight ends, I'll give you the name, David Njoku, big-time tight end here. Great. He had a very good connection with Jameis Winston last year. Of course, I had in fantasy. Helped me win some games last year. So very good tight end there. And again, they are going to be losing. They don't have Nick Chubb. They're without Nick Chubb for the first time since 2018. Of course, they're going to have to rely on their rookie running backs. Of course, Judkins is not really sure what's going on with him. So again, you got rookie Dylan Sampson from Tennessee. And again, the Browns do have a relatively hard schedule to start the season. I'll go over it real quick. They open the year home against the Bengals, who oftentimes start slow, but I'm expecting the Bengals to start hot this year. Of course, we already know what's up with the Bengals. And week 2, home opener for the Ravens. They're playing at Baltimore week 2, so that's a very tough matchup, obviously. Then you got week 3, home against the Packers, and week 4 at the Lions. So very tough schedule for the Browns. So I'm expecting them to probably start Joe Flacco for the first 4 weeks. Of course, they could start. I guess it's not impossible they do start Shedeur. I don't really see it happening week 1, but I could definitely see, by the time week 5 comes around, if Flacco's hurt or if he just simply is not really doing well, certainly see Shedeur Sanders being in that position. So, guys, and then lastly, I do, unfortunately for the Browns, see them finishing the season 4-13. And, of course, that is last in the AFC North. I do see them beating some AFC North teams. I haven't beat the Bengals and the Steelers, of course, not the Ravens. But I would not be surprised if it happens. The Browns always seem to play us tight, and we always seem to play down to their level. So that's very frustrating on the Ravens' part. But, guys, thanks for watching. Of course, this has been today's episode of the Cleveland Browns. Now, stay tuned for tomorrow. We'll be talking about America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. So, guys, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more. This has been the Zcrew Podcast. Thank you, guys. Go